You guys some of you consider yourselves feminists. You said the inequalities, and then you're feminist because there's inequalities between men and women. You said that you're a feminist because women are discriminated against. So Parisa, to hear from you first, what are some of the inequalities that you're talking about?
I think a lot of the inequalities today, I mean, we can look at something more recent, like, for example, like Roe v. Wade being overturned. Like, women now don't even have the right to control what they do with their own body, and the government is telling them, but like something like that would never be instilled for like a man. Or like you can look at the pay gap. Like, there's a very obvious pay gap. A woman and a man can do the same job, and like most times a man is going to be paid a lot better. Like, there's just still a lot of inequalities, and I think that feminism aims to like get rid of these things, so that's why I consider myself a feminist.
I mean, there's a couple things there. The wage gap's been debunked. There's no wage gap.
I mean, I would say that there is still, like, commonly, like, you would see, like, studies have shown that there is a wage gap in a lot of jobs.
Is that what your liberal professors tell you at Santa Barbara City College?
I've just seen things like rhetoric and literature that has proven that point. If you've seen other
probably conducted by feminists that are they've already arrived at their conclusion.
I mean, what would you say about Roe v. Wade then? That
sure,
being
I'll adjust that. Well, you said that you're feminist because of inequality between men and women. Now, I don't really want to get into a discussion about abortion, but what I would say is that the abortion discussion has very little to do with equality between men and women, because men don't have an abortion right. Men don't have reproductive rights. So you could actually argue, because men don't have, I mean, this is getting a little bit very specific, but I could make the argument that equality between men and women on the abortion topic would be no women in the United States can get an abortion. That would make it equal between men and women, because a man has no reproductive rights when it comes to abortion. I'm not really interested in having an abortion debate right now, especially because we don't have much time left. But I don't think the abortion rights thing has really anything to do with equality between the sexes.
Well, I understand what you're saying in the sense that, like, men do not have, like, the whole, like, reproductive rights thing, but I'm just saying equality in the sense of, like, having an equal right to control what you do with your body, having an equal right that the law is not telling you what you can and cannot do. I just think...
Well, come to think of it, actually, it's difficult because obviously men don't get pregnant, so... Yeah. You know, it's just like a biological reality. What I will tell you, though, is when it comes to the government and your body, so this right here, Nick, if you can switch it to this camera, this is a draft registration card. Now, don't mind the colors, the bright colors, right? If I skip to this page here, so this is a draft registration card that only men in this country have to sign. It's called I don't know if you're familiar with the selective service system. So when it comes to men having control of their bodies, in the event of a war, bear in mind what's going on in Ukraine, bear in mind what's going on in the Middle East right now. This idea that men have control of their bodies, it's actually not entirely true. In the event of a draft, men would be forced to go into the trenches, into the front lines, and they wouldn't have a choice when it comes to that. Now, you don't see feminists in the streets really advocating for an equalization of the draft or getting rid of the selective service system or getting rid of male military conscription.
And I think that is a problem with a lot of, like, modern day feminism, is that it doesn't focus on equalizing things, and it has, I'd say I have seen a shift, especially on, like, social media, where feminism has turned into kind of like, I don't know, more so elevating one gender over the other, or like trying to, like, point out differences. But I think that it is important for feminism to also focus on, like, these differences or, like, these problems that occur for men too. I would not say that is something that it should not tackle.
Right, sure. I guess I'm just, again, it's not going to be productive to have a conversation on abortion, but again, I just failed to see when it comes to inequality. So typically when you think of inequality, it would be something like some right or privilege that men have that women don't. But because men don't have any abortion rights because they can't have children, I don't think it's it's a woman's rights issue, but I don't think it's a inequality issue.
I just personally see it as that because I see it as an unequal sense of control over your body, because although like the war draft, like you bring that up, which is a great point, and I do think that is that does need to be addressed. I think that the lack of control that not allowing abortion gives to women is very, very different than that, because like in the event of a war, like that's a lot less likely than like a woman needing an abortion for like any reason. I think that like the case of a woman needing an abortion is a lot more like common, just well for like right now. I mean, like if you count like what's going on in Ukraine, obviously, but like I'm just saying it's not like every single year that there's a new war happening.
I mean, we are every day. I would argue
Europe's been at war for years.
But there hasn't been a draft in 50 years.
Yeah.
So.
There's no active.
Okay, but there are men that would, in the Vietnam War, there are men that would still be, I see Madison, there are men that would still be alive today had they not been drafted. There are men that are, there are men that died that would still be alive today had they not been drafted. There are men that are alive today that were drafted that are dealing with severe, like either they were a casualty of war, so they had an injury, PTSD.
Don't you think women get PTSD from having a baby they don't want to have?
Yeah, but are you really comparing getting an abortion to the PTSD that soldiers experience from war?
Well, you're comparing
You
getting
are.
an abortion to the
Getting
draft.
drafted.
I would argue that throughout human history, male military conscription is a bigger gender grievance than certainly the abortion grievance.
Since the beginning of time, it has always been men go to war, women stay home and take care of the family and kids.
Yeah, it's bad. We're not saying it's not bad, but it's not like it's not the same.
So are you saying that forced male military conscription is not as bad as some women in some states?
It's bad. I'm not saying it's not bad.
No, but
I
that's
think
not really
she's saying that it's not necessarily comparable, which I do kind of see, because it's like it's not necessarily talking about like the same type of like right to do something, because one of them is saying like in the event that like there is a war, like men will be drafted, which obviously is still like a lack of control, but the other is saying like in your day-to-day life, like you will not have the ability to do this, like because like we're not giving you the right, like it's different.
I see what you're saying. Well, what I would say is, while currently here in the United States there hasn't been a draft in a long time, every single male in this country, once they turn 18, they have to register with the Selective Service. So that's a biased gender requirement that men have to do that women don't. Granted, it's rather easy to register. However, as a man, if you don't register, technically it's a felony. You can be imprisoned for up to 5. I don't want to misquote. It's either 5 or 10 years. I think it's probably 5 years. You can get a fine of $250,000. If you don't register for the Selective Service, hold on, it says it here. Let me read it. I'm going to read it just because I don't want to misquote anything. Okay. Let's see, hold on. What happens if I don't register? Not registering is a felony. Young men convicted of failure to register may be fined up to $250,000, imprisoned for up to 5 years, or both. In addition to being subject to prosecution, failure to register may cause you to permanently forfeit eligibility for certain benefits. Federal and many state laws require registration age men to be registered with Selective Service to remain eligible for applying for the following benefits. So as a guy, if you don't register for the Selective Service, it might bar you for life from receiving student financial aid, certain government jobs, government employment with the U.S. Postal Service, job training, and U.S. citizenship for male immigrants.
Ninja Smoke donated $99. Men have no choice in war.
That's true.
However, women choose to have sex. How is killing your child always being defended like it's normal? Make better choices in the men you choose to sleep with, so if you get pregnant they will stay around and be good fathers.
In any case, I don't really want to thank you, Ninja Smoke, for the comment. It's kind of getting away, if we get into an abortion discussion, it gets away from things. But I'm trying to remember, it stemmed from the inequality discussion. So I think you're making a bodily autonomy argument, and you were saying, well, men in the United States, it's unequal because women don't have an abortion right, and there's no corresponding thing that could take away a man's bodily autonomy. But that's actually quite literally not true, because we have male-only conscription in this country. So if there's a draft, only men would be conscripted, and their bodily autonomy would quite literally be taken away from them. They'd be forced to go to somewhere they don't want to go. They'd be forced to go to war. They'd be forced to fight. They'd potentially be forced to die. I think that that's worse than not having the right to an abortion.
And in the events of a draft, it's not will they die, people will die. A lot of people die. This isn't World War II. This is 2023. Whatever, it's going to be bad.
Women die during childbirth, though, too.
That is true.
What if...
Wait, I have a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Sienna.
Maybe I can't say that.
I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. My question to you, let me ask you guys this. What would you say to a guy, let's say there's just some fuckboy out there, and he was just sleeping with a bunch of girls, and he gets a girl pregnant, and he's like, oh fuck, man, and she wants to keep the kid, right? What would you say to him? Like, what would you tell him? Like, and he doesn't want to have the kid. What would you tell him?
Get ready for child support.
Child support.
Would you maybe tell him, hey, if you didn't want to be in this situation, maybe you shouldn't have had sex? Would you tell him that?
Maybe tell him to use a condom, but...
Oh, okay. But what would you tell him? Like, tough luck?
I don't know. I feel like at that point, there's not much you can do as the man, because you're not the one, like, bearing the child.
Right. We have zero reproductive rights.
I'd have to agree.
But would you just tell him to suck it up?
I mean, at that point, it's either like you discuss it with the girl and you try and like come to an agreement. I don't know, or like you can't. She wants
to keep the kid, and she's going to come after. She's definitely going to come after you for child support. What do you tell the guy?
I mean, there's nothing you can do then.
You tell him. What do you tell him though?
There's nothing you can do. Like, you have to pay the child support.
Tough luck, right?
He has no say,
you
right?
shouldn't have done that, right? See, we only hold men accountable for their bad decisions, but
I wouldn't say you shouldn't have done that, though. I'd just say, like, that is the result of an action that, like, was taken. I don't think that the same thing can be
so
said.
men have no reproductive rights, so there is no inequality.
I mean, it's not necessarily, like, I don't think, like, that plays into it in the way that, like, you're seeing it play into it. Because I don't think that, like, it has anything to do with the fact that, like, just because, I don't know, I just don't think that situation holds relevance to, like...
But I guess what's interesting is when, for example, if a woman wanted to get an abortion, and if we were to tell that woman, you should have just kept your legs closed, a lot of people would be very offended by that comment and say, well, women should still have an option, and whereas if a man gets a girl pregnant, suck it up, tough, enjoy 18 years of child support. You have no say as a guy. You have no option.
He may not have a say, but like, how many deadbeat fathers are out there that like don't pay their child support, don't show up for their child or their
baby mama.
Yeah, and then if they don't pay their child support, they get thrown in prison. Actually, we abolished debtors' prisons hundreds of years ago because we realized that putting people in prison for debt, for not paying fines or for debt, is is bad. But the only way that you can go to jail for not paying a fine or not paying a debt is through child support. So basically men are exposable. Men are viewed, we are the wage slaves of society. That's it.
But do you think there could be anything to do with the fact, I mean, so you've made this point before that men can impregnate multiple women and women
Right.
can only get pregnant
I'm not
by
saying
one
that men
man
should be.
once every
Okay.
once every
Go ahead.
9 months. So do you think that could have a reason why there's no, like, if there was legislation that gave men more rights, the fact that they're able to exercise that more, like, it just could get more complicated? I'm just curious.
Wait, so,
I don't know what it would look like, but I wonder if that could play into why women are granted more rights legally in this sense, and if it has to do with the fact that men can get more women pregnant, like it just seems like it would be a nightmare, whereas a woman can only get pregnant by one guy at one time, and then it's for 9 months, or I guess she could abort it, and then do you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, but she was saying that there's a bunch of, even though, like, if a guy gets a girl pregnant, there are a lot of guys that aren't going to pay child support. Mm-hmm. They're going to be deadbeat dads, right? Sorry, it's getting late. My brain fuel is running out. But my counter to that is, well, there are consequences as a guy if you are a deadbeat dad. Mm-hmm. And if the woman wants to pursue it, you can get thrown in. If you don't pay child support, that you can go to jail for that.
yeah.
So, and again, we abolished debtors' prisons long time ago. But the only thing where you can still go to prison for not paying some sort of fine or something is when it comes to child support, and that's like 97%. It's over 90% of child support goes from men to women. So, but it's interesting when men don't want to step up to the plate, when men don't want to be fathers, when men aren't in a financial position or don't want to financially contribute, they're called deadbeat dads. But when women want to get abortions, that, like, you go.
That's really interesting.
Against the man's wishes. 'Cause that happens
No,
too.
the women are called empowered.
No, but men are called deadbeats, so men always have to have accountability, but women, you have an out. Just get an abortion. You're not called. If you're a woman who gets,
Why don't we allow abortion?
Huh?
Why don't we allow it then? If it's
we do allow.
Roe v.
abortions.
Wade didn't
States.
abolish. It just made it a state issue, which is interesting. I mean, you could
Go to
say,
California.
imagine if the draft was defederalized, so it became a state's issue, and certain states could choose if they have a draft or not. Then it would be more comparable comparison. But
I would say, like, both, not to get into politics, but like both people on the left and the right politically would say that a guy who's, like, not paying child support or isn't in that kid's life is a deadbeat father. And certainly, like, people, if you're Republican or conservative, you're obviously very critical of abortion. However, like, it's interesting that there's this pressure on men on both sides if you're a deadbeat dad, because you're not financially ready, or you're not financially in a position to support a kid, but that's a totally valid reason for a woman to get an abortion. I just think that's interesting.
it is interesting.